So I ask you to please put your hands together for our two experts coming on stage. Mrs. Carla Bellini, the certified chartered accountant at Studio Piani, Chiarolo, she's going to correct me, Trabotoni. Thank you very much. And Shaila Krishnamurthy, come on up, life and leadership coach of Women Empowerment Enabler. Thank you, ladies, for joining us. Come on over. We got two beautiful seats for you. Will be a great fireside, another one that keeps this great intimate group engaged. They'd love to participate. They're doing a great job so far.
Oh, thank you. As you gave us a very interesting and challenging topic, so we started to talk about it from the first day, and we are going on in talking about it. So it's a very long fireside chat for us.
Fantastic.
And we
and
hope
a very
the same for
interesting
you.
one
Yes.
for us and for you as well.
Right, but then you got the customer-centric approach, so everyone's going to be very interested to what you got.
Thank you, and we hope the same really for you. So I loved, as usually, the words with which you start, and I like this idea to create when something seems to be broken. This is a really wide topic. Culture cannot be summarized in a few words. Really, we started to think about it and to think what is more important behind the information, behind the data. Culture is, for us, something related to values. And the values we identified, we are very happy to be here to share them with you and to try to summarize from our very different perspectives, because our background in terms of professional experience is really seems far, but we found really commonalities in the values we follow. And we are trying to grasp with you the super topics. So the first question we started with by talking with each other was about the pillars, the values for you, Shaila, if you like to share with us, because it's an interesting point to start for me as well.
Thank you, Carla. A very good morning to one and all. We have a very interesting topic today, right? Fixing the ABCs of corporate culture. Yeah. I think as soon as we heard this topic, me and Carla, we started talking from day one, and it's just going nonstop. We have so many thoughts, so many ideas to share with you all, and of course, discuss with each other. So, I have tasted both the worlds, corporate and entrepreneurship. So sometimes bitter, sometimes sweet. So whenever we talk about culture, right, culture starts at home, isn't it? And we bring about this culture and our values to the corporate world. So when we talk about ABCs of corporate culture, I think the very first step is to identify the ABCs, yes. Right? What are these ABCs? And maybe we have D, E, F till Z. You never know. Right? So, okay, let's at least start with the basics. So when we talk about the A of corporate culture, it's the attitude. Do you all agree? Yeah? So there was a study at the Harvard University that showed that, so 85% of the time, whenever a person gets a job or gets promoted, right, it's because of his or her attitude. And only 15% of the times, it's because of the knowledge or the intelligence that he or she has, right, with respect to some specific facts and figures. Isn't it? So I think having this right attitude is the key.
Yes, and this attitude, I think that we have to do our best, as we talked about it also in the past 2 days, how attitude is linked to the F of failure. Absolutely. Because attitude requires a good attitude for failures. We many times in different topics we talked about the value of failure to learn, the value of failure to build, the value of failure to create something new, which maybe was not so far from the failure, from the wrong letter we decided it for our strategy, but it's necessary. So commit A, attitude, and failure are very, very linked together.
Yeah, they go hand in hand, right?
Yeah.
So you fail, you learn, and then you improvise. Yeah, that's the key. Okay, so coming to the B. Yes.
The B, and no, for the failure, I was thinking about how it is difficult. I'm sure that you noted the same in your organizations, how it is difficult to accept the failures coming from the people we care. Sometimes we are more worried about the negative impacts that a failure can have for the people we care than for ourselves. This is something that, or in organization can, also in families can be. We noted the same with how many times for our sons we don't accept their failures. So when we care about people, we must understand that if we care, we are worried about the failure of the people we love, of the people we need. So don't depend on the success of the people you care.
Right.
That's the
it
same
goes
for
hand
us.
in hand, absolutely. And like I said, culture starts at home, right? And then it passes on to the corporate world, isn't it? Or the entrepreneurial world we are in, right? So that's very true, Carla. So yes, moving on to the B of corporate culture, B is the behavior, right? That's so important. Whenever we are in a corporate world, how do we behave? How do we present ourselves, right? Now, if you've ever wondered, there are a few organizations and people who are always successful. How do they do that? Any idea? How are they successful? Right? Sorry? Yes, they're collaborative, they're disciplined, right? And one of the most important things that they do is they invest in themselves, right? And once they do that, right, their behavioral pattern, their mindset, their thought process, everything transforms.
Yes,
Yeah?
we have really to think about these insights that Shaila is giving us. Because if you think about it, we spend a lot of efforts in teaching information, and then we build teams more depending on the attitude, on the behavior of people, of their approach to the work, than for the information they have. If they have the right behavior, we think that then they will learn. They will learn what is missing in their background.
Absolutely. Just to give you a very quick example, I'll not take much time. When I was with a telecom company in Germany, I had two of my colleagues, let's call them A and B, person A and person B, okay? So person A, he had one of the best attitudes and one of the best behaviors, but technically he was not so very sound. He was okay, he was doing fine, right? And person B, technically, he was like amazing all over the place, right? But he had a very bad attitude, very bad behavior. So who do you think has excelled in life?
Yes, but there is a bias for organizations in this, because we tend to give more prize. We first ask people to be prepared in terms of information, of technical background, and then we choose the pick, the best in terms of behavior. Then we should think, starting from the educational side. I also work for a university. I love teaching, and we should spend efforts in making people grow up their behavior, their attitude to the work, because it's frustrating for people with a huge technical background to be put aside, not to be chosen. This is something that can give a wrong attitude to the team, because it seems from the bottom that the organization doesn't care about what they learned. This is horrible if you think about it.
I think, it kind of goes both ways, right,
Yes.
Carla? So I think finding a balance between the two is really important.
Yes.
Right?
And try to help technical, skilled people
To get better at behavior.
To get better. Not
And
they
the other way
are
around.
not wrong, because it's a false message. It can be a false message. Do you think this? I'm sure that you noted this in your in your teams, if you think about situations with people may be upset because they haven't been chosen or haven't lived the growth they were expecting depending on their technical backgrounds.
Yeah, but I think as humans, what happens is the focus will be more on how that individual is, right? Yeah? And then, of course, comes the capabilities and talent and all that. Yeah? So, but it's like, yes, you have a question.
Thank you. Individuals in the C-suites are planning how they're going to maybe take lunch early or trying to wipe back their tears. At what cost do we recognize someone's behavior is toxic? From birth to 7 years old, that person's formative years, that should be fixed. It's not for me as an HR professional to fix the behavior of a 50-year-old. That person has to take ownership on their own. They're getting paid a salary. They're getting amazing total rewards and benefits. They have to look themselves in the mirror at, this is not my company. I have to be able to be respectful from 9 to 5. I think there's so much we can coach. There's so much we can establish objectives and goals for the year. But at the end of the day, you have to take ownership on your own what you're bringing to the organizations. There's a limit between personal growth, what you want to do as a professional. You want to get a certification, you want to get PMP, we can help with those things. But in terms of the soft skills, interpersonal skills, that should be done by high school. I mean, you can always help and work in therapy, but at some point we have to recognize when it's bringing down the entire team and we need to make a change.
Right.
Thank you. I love your question. I love what you noted because it shows us that sometimes we clearly see the issue, and it's so difficult also as professional, also as coach, if you work in this role, to point out what you can see is wrong. But if I take a step back, I have to think that all human beings cannot be gifted in everything. So if there is a strong issue in people working in an organization, so I think that they have values, they have technical abilities, that they have something to give, which is important, which is valuable, we should think about the gift, which is totally inconsistent with the approach, the positive approach we think that they need. And in talking to these people, in my opinion, we should start from the higher gift they have, which prevents them to be positive in the opposite value. If I love doing sports, maybe I read less. If I read a lot and I love reading, maybe I do less sport. If I listen to an advice, a suggestion about what I'm not good at, I tend to feel judged, and this is not the good starting point.
So I think as leaders, that's where
I see in your eyes that you that you felt this.
No, it's very thought-provoking,
it's the
isn't
same
it?
for us. We have to love our gifts. Maybe they are not consistent with any gift in the world. That's okay.
Some personality disorders.
Yes.
So
Some
I think
things
as
are-
leaders, thank you for that comment. As leaders, I think the very first thing that we all need to consider is to be a coach, right? That's how you can facilitate your employees to come up with such kind of individuality, right? So whenever I talk to my clients, the very first question I ask them is, who are you as an individual? And then comes, what are you good at? What do you do? Right? So that is the very first question we all need to ask ourselves and have an answer to it, whenever that comes. right? So,
Thank you. There is another question,
Yeah.
I think.
I'm an executive coach myself, so I'm totally with you. But when you look at research on how organizations are running, so for instance, Tribal Leadership is one of my favorite books on this. 75% of the companies they researched have a me, not you culture. So it's super competitive. And then those people end up in leadership. And they now get told you need to be a coach. You need to create a we culture. But how did they get to that position? By learning it's me, not you.
Yes.
So now, and I work with leaders who don't want to be coaches because they have, it's either you or me at the top, but not both. And that's a real challenge. Gary Hamel wrote a book called Humanocracy, and he talks about most organizations in the world are less human than the humans working in them. So
Yes.
how do we get beyond that?
But it's arriving a worker which is difficult to integrate in the team, which is digitalization. So this should also suggest us that it's not the perfect worker, the winner one. So if we killed humanity towards digitalization, this could be a nightmare for any businesses. So the perfect worker may be something coming from a computer, which is him and not us. That's okay. And I also, this is competition is in the market. It's not just within the organization. So I totally agree with you. Competition is, we live, it's our sea. We all swim in this sea of competition. So if you we follow this approach, competition could be considered something killing values. But competition is everywhere and is also in sports. But this doesn't prevent teams to grow up. So the right attitude, the eye of the tiger is not negative. The underestimation of the follower, me. Yes, and my follower learns more than me because he's learning what is not working. And maybe he is eating my competitive advantage while I'm saying me. So competition is part of the game, is the sea of the game.
I think as you rightly mentioned, having this humanistic approach is the key, right, in the new age digitalized world. So, yeah, how do we bring about it? That's where we will, come to the C of corporate culture. That's core values, right? And whenever we talk about core values, I think the very first thing, again, it starts at home, right? What values do you have as a person? And what values do the organizations have, right, as part of their culture? And then how do you align your values, right, your core values to the organizational values? I think this alignment is the key, right? And I think this happens at all hierarchical levels, isn't it?
Yes.
Right, Carla? And
Yeah.
then how do you think they're going to sustain that?
Yes, and the thoughts you were suggesting make me also think about not just for failure, but the F is a key letter here, because we also need flexibility.
Absolutely.
We also need to avoid fear. Fear is the enemy. If there is fear, if we are concerned about the consequences, we don't try. We don't build the team. If we are afraid that someone else in the team can make us become transparent, can make our abilities to disappear in the organization, we would never work in team with others, because of the fear to be overcome, and it would become the first engine of our activity. Fear is dramatic, kills everything. So also leaders using fear to require consequences of the actions of the workforce may arrive to some result, but the long-term result is far from fear. Really.
Right, right. But sometimes, pseudo fear is pretty much good, right? That puts in a lot of pressure on people to perform better, right? And I think most of the leaders, of course, all the leaders present here, we all go through that, isn't it? So yes, that's one of the factors that we need to consider. And continuing with the ABCs, I think there are a lot of other factors that we need to look at, like being dynamic, being empathetic, being flexible, like you mentioned, right? Yeah, but all of these, values, these values will come only when you have a humanistic approach towards whatever you're doing, be it in the corporate, be it, in the entrepreneurial world, right? But how do we continue with this humanistic approach is a big question, right? Everything is digitalized right now. I think from day one, we've been hearing one word, which is like, super famous here. What is that? AI.
Yes.
Isn't it? So we're all talking about it, but we wouldn't want to depend on it, right? So digitalization, AI, all of these things, it should be only to simplify the way we work, right? And not take over humans, isn't it? So keeping this humanistic approach is the key.
Yes.
Right? So whenever we talk about culture, corporate culture, how do we bring about, this approach?
Humanistic, in a wide sense. If we spend time, but really spend time, attention, and effort in knowing ourselves, we build also the best way for us to learn and to be confident about our values, because fear comes from uncertainty. We are not self-confident because we are afraid that we are not enough. Maybe. We cannot be enough in everything which is required by this competitive world we live. That's okay. This is. We are weak. We may not be able to do something. We may not be able to take the place we deserve in terms of competitive positioning in the market. Maybe we deserve something more, but we miss something which is the key to arrive to that place. We deserve. So if we learn and we spend really time to know ourselves, we can well understand what we miss and we can improve. So be patient, first of all, with yourself. It's a suggestion. To become older makes us to become wiser. Yes, this is a good thing for the time we spend in this world.
Yeah.
So really, if we love ourselves, we can also become more confident about our values and our ability to improve.
Right. Taking one day at a time.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, like I think Dale Carnegie says, every day is a new day for a wise man, isn't it? Or a woman.
Yes. In
Yeah,
tennis, we say one ball at the time,
Right.
1 point at the time.
Right,
You don't
right.
build the game if you want to win the match.
Right.
You
right.
have to play each ball, each
Yeah.
point is the
Yeah.
right one. You can lose many of them.
Yeah, and I think as women leaders, right? Sorry, I'm a women empowerment enabler, so I end up talking about women.
Yes.
So as women leaders, we always bring in a very, a feministic approach, right? Within the organization culture that we are talking about. Why? Because we play different roles in life: mother, daughter, right? Spouse, whatever, right? And then we have these inherent power skills within us. And we bring those power skills to the, corporate world as well, right? So I think many women leaders, I think even men should encourage women leaders to be a part of this whole circle where, together we can bring about a better culture within the organization. Yeah, what do you think, Carla?
Yeah, I do agree. And I do agree that both sides, both genders give values and the interaction can give new results to the world. So this is something we have to have the curiosity also and the openness to make occur, make happen.
Absolutely. Okay, we have another 1 minute left. I think we will just quickly summarize as to what we spoke, and then we will leave it to the audience. So I think, yeah, it is a lot to do with the ABCs of corporate culture, but end of the day, how we are as humans, how we bring about ourselves, our individuality to wherever we are, right? Whatever we do, whichever part of the world, that matters the most, right? And when we focus on our individuality, we will be able to bring about our core values to the corporate world as well. And as leaders, we can also, lead and show the path to the other employees working with us.
Oh, yes. I would be brief. I love this conversation we had. I have a wish for you. Love yourself, because it's the first stage. To put your mask on when there is a disaster is the same we have in world competition. And build your eye of the tiger in your right way, which belongs just to you. It's yours. It mustn't be aggressive. It's not that. It's to be committed to what you would like at best to do for your life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Carla, Shaila, thank you so much for your insight. Oh, questions already. Yes.
Good morning, ladies. My name's Peju Abuchi of Core Leaders International. Really enjoyed that conversation. Like the point about culture starting at home, usually starts at the kitchen table.
Right.
I wanted to just add another C, courage, because we spoke a lot about people who have fear,
Right.
and people who have certain characteristics and personalities that don't quite work well in certain workplaces. And I think sometimes they don't have the awareness. So where culture begins at home, and all homes are different.
Right.
So some people just don't have the awareness that they rob people off the wrong way, or they come across a certain way, they're quite toxic. And I think it takes courage to raise the awareness of those kind of people. When have you both displayed courage in situations that have helped people to be a better version of themselves?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you. Any other questions?
Did you need them to answer it? It's for you, ladies.
Sorry?
I think we all have a daily disclosures in different aspects. I think that self-confidence you mentioned, and it's the second or third time today I heard the word toxic. So business culture has first maybe to fight against what we understand as human beings is toxic, and we feel something about it. Let's this ring bell. If it is, we are hiding something of ourselves. We are not deploying the power of the organization. Toxic things kill these possibilities to blossom. So right. I think that it's a daily improvement. So thanks for the question. I really don't know a time.
Yeah, let me just quickly comment. Give my 2 cents there. So I think whenever we talk about courage, right, we tend to think a lot as human beings. End of the day, right? How do I bring about myself? How do I bring about my courage and all that? But what happens is, like, depending on our way of how we are brought up at home, right? We end up having these unconscious biases, right? That's why it's called unconscious biases, because we're not aware of it sometimes, yeah? And that's where this individuality comes into picture, right? And sometimes that individuality can be good or bad, yeah? And again, that's where the leaders within the organization or whoever is responsible for it need to be in that position to recognize What is that unconscious bias this person is having, which is enabling him or her to behave in a certain way, right? And we work together as a team, like I think one of our gentlemen here who mentioned, right? So it's me before you, right? That's true. But as leaders, you need to work with your team. Otherwise, you're not a leader, end of the day, right?
Yes.
Ah, okay. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
You made me think about one thing that I suggest also to note in yourselves. And is about any time you feel that something can be toxic. And you find a way not to feel the difficulties of the moment, but to find a way to move the relationship with the situation in maybe also a smiley way, with some lighter approach. Not all toxic things require a very big effort in terms of counter-aggressivity. Sometimes you feel a very bad situation and you take the inconsistency and you put it in a way that can make all the people think that it's nothing. These are small cases, but are the real game changer in organizations. Because if you can avoid them, they become something which is going to make all the situation disappointing and difficult for everyone. And you, the first, as earlier you detect it, and as earlier you answer to the situation in a light way, that's all.
Yeah.
And you must be very self-confident and very brave to do it. This is, I think, a real example of courage.
Absolutely. And just to add my experience to answer your question, since the time I started working, I've been the only woman in, I have worked in the telecom industry as well. I've been the only woman in the boardroom or in the meeting room or in the technical domain, all of that. And it's sometimes it's not easy, right? In a room full of men sitting and trying to talk and discuss a lot of topics. But one thing I realized was, no matter what, you got to speak. Your voice shakes, speak. You're trembling, speak, right? That's how you need to kind of, put out your voice. But I think the more you do that, the more courageous you will get. But we need to really sometimes force ourselves to go ahead and do it no matter what. Thank you.
It is. Thank you.